Jasmine Crockett launched an aggressive attempt to take control, but Karoline Leavitt's quick counterattack not only left Crockett stunned, but also shocked the entire audience with a powerful shift in momentum. Before diving into the story, let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Under the bright lights of the Capitol Clash studio, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The room was filled with an eclectic mix of MAGA supporters, holding bold red signs, and progressive activists glaring with intensity. The audience was prepared for an intense war of words. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every subtle shift in expression. Frowns, tight smiles, each one loaded with anticipation. The polished wooden floor of the studio reflected the bright lights, transforming the space into a true political battlefield. As the cameras rolled, Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, stepped onto the stage with confidence. Her red heels clicked with purpose, and her pastel pink blazer stood out sharply. A cross necklace sparkled at her neck, signaling her strong presence. Every detail radiated the poise of a rising political force. With a sharp smile and an unwavering gaze, Leavitt was there to defend Trump, defend her ideals, and prove her worth. Behind her came Jasmine Crockett, the Democratic Congresswoman. Her curly hair was tied neatly, her strides purposeful, and her eyes filled with determination as she prepared to challenge the White House. The host, Harper, raised her voice, capturing the room's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Capitol Clash. Tonight, Karoline Leavitt, the fiery young voice of the White House, faces off against Jasmine Crockett, the fierce force in Congress." The room erupted into applause, the sound mixing with murmurs of expectation. The stage was set for a battle of two opposing worldviews, and the audience was on edge, ready for the sparks to fly. After Harper's introduction, the crowd sat up straighter, eyes locked on Karoline Leavitt and Jasmine Crockett. Harper flashed a smile, holding her note cards and preparing to steer the debate. But before she could ask her first question, Crockett turned to Leavitt with a smile, though her tone was calculated. "Miss Leavitt," Crockett began, her voice sweet but cutting. "It's great to see someone as young as you here, but I wonder, how does a new mother, just 27, justify Trump's economic policies, like tariffs, when they drive up prices and hurt American workers?" The audience murmured, sensing the subtle jab. Leavitt, however, was unshaken. With a calm and collected demeanor, she responded, her voice as sharp as ever. "Thank you for the welcome, Congresswoman, but age or motherhood doesn't stop me from speaking up for Americans. Our tariffs are protecting jobs from unfair foreign competition. I've spoken with farmers in Iowa and workers in Pennsylvania, and they thank Trump for putting America first. Have you met them, or are you too busy tweeting from Congress?" The crowd erupted in applause, with MAGA supporters cheering loudest. Harper raised a hand to regain control. "Things are already heating up. Miss Crockett, care to continue?" she asked, signaling Crockett to respond. Crockett didn't back down. Her eyes narrowed as she took her turn. "Miss Leavitt, you talk about protecting jobs, but tariffs are costing farmers and workers due to rising production costs. Do you actually read the data, or do you just repeat what Trump tells you? Someone as young as you should know better before standing behind the White House podium." Leavitt didn't flinch. She tilted her head slightly, locking eyes with Crockett, her smile unwavering. "Data? I could quote it all day, Congresswoman. But workers don't live off data, they live off jobs, security, and hope, things that Trump delivers. You call me young, but I'm mature enough to know that the old trade deals you support have gutted American jobs. If you really care, why not go out and talk to real people instead of reading speeches from Washington?" The audience roared again, some even standing and shouting, "Karoline!" Crockett, determined not to be outdone, pointed directly at Leavitt. "You're good with words, I'll give you that," Crockett said, voice sharp. "But you're just polishing Trump's image. A man who cut taxes for the rich and abandoned the poor. I fight for workers every day, from minimum wage laws to protecting unions. You call that America first? I call it political theater." Leavitt's gaze intensified, and she cut in without hesitation. Congresswoman, our tax cuts are helping small businesses and working families keep more of their hard-earned money, Karoline Leavitt began, her voice firm. You talk about fighting for the people, but I see steelworkers in Ohio supporting Trump because we brought jobs back. If you truly want to help the poor, go listen to them. Don't just tweet about them from your fancy office. The audience erupted into deafening applause and cheers. A group of spectators raised their phones, capturing every moment. Harper, visibly flustered for the first time, quickly intervened. "Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down," Harper said, trying to calm the room. "Miss Crockett, care to respond?" Crockett's eyes were still burning with intensity, but her tone shifted slightly. Defensive. "Miss Leavitt, you talk about jobs, but tariffs have cost thousands of agricultural jobs. You may be young and smart, but you don't understand the pain of people losing their livelihoods because of the policies you defend." Before Crockett could finish, Leavitt fired back instantly, cutting her off. "Pain? I understand it more than you think, Congresswoman," Leavitt said sharply. "I've met working families who lost their jobs to China, not because of our tariffs. If you want to talk about livelihoods, let's talk about how we're rebuilding America, while you're out there criticizing me to score points." The atmosphere in the studio felt like a storm was brewing after the fiery exchange between Karoline Leavitt and Jasmine Crockett. Sensing the rising tension, Rachel Harper adjusted her posture and raised her voice with dramatic flair. "Miss Leavitt, many have accused the White House through your press briefings of using media tactics to cover up President Trump's failures. How do you respond?" Leavitt's gaze fixed on Harper. She smiled confidently. This was no polite grin, but a smile that made the entire audience hold their breath. "Rachel, I'm not surprised by that accusation," Leavitt replied, her voice steady. "Outlets like CNN and MSNBC have spent years distorting the truth about President Trump. My job is to clarify the truth for Americans. Just last year, we reached over 50 million people directly through the X platform, bypassing biased filters. From the White House podium to social media, I speak for those Washington forgets, farmers, factory workers, and small business owners, not the media elite." The audience erupted again, MAGA supporters cheering loudly. Crockett, refusing to let Leavitt dominate the conversation, raised her hand. "Miss Leavitt," Crockett began, her voice sharp, "you're spinning Trump's narrative, covering up his failures. From trade policies that cost 200,000 agricultural jobs, according to the Department of Agriculture, to his mounting legal battles. You stand at that podium, polishing the image of a man who doesn't care about workers. That's media manipulation, not the truth." The room went quiet, some audience members gasping, feeling the weight of Crockett's attack. Harper raised a hand to maintain order, but Leavitt didn't flinch. She tilted her head, her eyes locked onto Crockett. "Manipulation?" Leavitt asked, her voice calm but cutting. "Congresswoman, I don't see you at the Pennsylvania steel mills where 10,000 workers got their jobs back thanks to Trump, according to the Labor Department. Don't talk about the truth when all you're doing is sitting in Congress tweeting about justice without acting on it." The audience exploded into applause mixed with cheers and whistles. A group stood filming with their phones while others whispered in awe. For the first time that night, Crockett fell silent, her eyes revealing a hint of shock as Leavitt's words hit home. Harper, trying once more to regain control, interjected, "Miss Crockett, care to respond?" Crockett quickly regained her composure, pointing a finger at Leavitt. Her voice was still sharp, though slightly defensive. "You dare say I don't act? I've proposed bills to raise the minimum wage to $15, fought for unions, and protected workers from Trump's failed trade policies," Crockett retorted. "Meanwhile, you're busy polishing Trump's image on TikTok like a Gen Z spokesperson who knows nothing beyond social media. Have you ever been to the slums to see how workers really live?" Leavitt didn't let Crockett finish, cutting in with a strong, unwavering tone. "TikTok, Congresswoman? I use every platform to tell Americans that we're fighting for them, from X to the briefing room," Leavitt said. "You talk about slums, but I've met workers in Detroit where unemployment dropped from 7% to 4% under Trump, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You want to talk about justice? Explain why Democrats let workers lose jobs to China, while Trump brought them back. The audience erupted once again, applause and cheers booming throughout the studio. Some shouted, "Karoline, take her down." Harper, clearly amazed, couldn't help but smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice filled with drama, "I think we've just witnessed a historic moment." Crockett, her eyes flashing with determination, attempted to regain ground. "Miss Leavitt, you're covering for a failed administration," Crockett said, her voice growing sharper. "According to the Economic Policy Institute, Trump's tariffs raised food prices by 10%, hurting the poorest. I represent them. Workers, the poor, the left behind. You think you understand them just because you stand behind the White House podium?" Leavitt's eyes never left Crockett as she responded immediately. "Understand them, Congresswoman? I'm a mother, a wife, and I know what matters to Americans," Leavitt shot back. "Food prices may be up, but median household income rose 6% under Trump, according to the Census Bureau. You talk about the left behind. Talk to the working families who lost jobs to the old trade deals you won't dare criticize. I don't need a congressional seat to understand their pain. I see it every day." The audience stood in applause, the sound echoing through the room. Some held up MAGA 2025 signs, while others filmed with wide eyes, clearly impressed. Harper, trying to maintain order, raised a hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, please calm down," she urged. "Miss Crockett, anything to add?" Crockett, her eyes showing clear shock, tried to respond, but her voice was weaker than before. "Miss Leavitt, you're smart, but you're defending a man who hurts Americans," Crockett said, struggling to regain her confidence. "Tariffs cost jobs, and I'll keep fighting for workers no matter what you say." Leavitt, with a confident smile, closed the exchange. "Congresswoman, if you're truly fighting, go out there and do it. As for me, I'll keep speaking for the Americans who chose Trump, and they're listening." She turned to the audience, lightly raising a hand, and the room erupted in cheers. Harper, flustered for the first time, quickly interjected, "Thank you, everyone. We'll continue after the break." The atmosphere in the studio burned like a raging furnace, almost suffocating. After Karoline Leavitt's sharp remark left Jasmine Crockett reeling. The audience, from MAGA supporters waving signs to tense progressive activists, sat upright, eyes glued to the stage, still buzzing from the media showdown. Leavitt, her hands lightly clasped, exuded unshakable confidence. Crockett, trying to regain her composure, looked uneasy, as if struggling to withstand the pressure from her younger opponent. Sensing the tension, Rachel Harper raised a hand to steady the crowd. Her voice rang with drama. "Ladies and gentlemen," Harper said, her voice booming, "we've just witnessed an unrelenting media clash. From economics to the media, our guests have shown true political fire. But now let's raise the stakes with a topic that will shape the nation's future." She turned to Crockett, her gaze both encouraging and challenging. "Miss Crockett, as a woman, how do you balance fighting for justice with supporting peaceful policies, especially when facing the Trump administration's hardline stance?" Crockett, taking a deep breath, leaned forward. Her eyes blazed with determination, but her voice was slightly cautious. "Rachel, as a woman, I understand the power of resilience. I fight for justice, for workers, the poor, the marginalized." Crockett replied, "Trump's security policies, with a 7% increase in military spending last year alone, per congressional reports, don't bring peace but push us toward conflict. As a woman, I call for peace, international cooperation, and protecting the vulnerable." Leavitt, unfazed, smiled confidently, her eyes locking onto Crockett. "Congresswoman, peace comes only from strength. Trump's security policies have reduced terrorist threats, with 90% of ISIS's senior leaders eliminated, according to the Defense Department," Leavitt said. "As a woman, I'm proud to represent a president who puts America's safety first. You talk about justice. I see you're busy attacking me instead of offering real solutions for national security," Leavitt said, her voice cutting. Through the tension, the room erupted in applause, a thunderous mix of support and shouts of "Karoline!" Crockett, her eyes flashing, tried to regain ground, but her voice began to tremble slightly. Miss Leavitt, strength isn't spending billions on weapons while 30 million Americans lack health insurance, according to the Center for American Progress. I fight for them. Women, people of color, workers. You defend Trump, a man who disrespects women. Why don't you stand up for us instead of being his tool? Leavitt's eyes never left Crockett as she cut in immediately, her voice as strong as steel. Congresswoman, President Trump made me press secretary at 27, a testament to his respect for women. I'm not here to prove myself to you, but to speak for the Americans who chose Trump. You talk about health care. Our administration cut prescription drug prices by 20%, according to the Department of Health. Do you want justice? Explain why. Democrats let the southern border spiral out of control, threatening American safety, while Trump rebuilds national strength. The audience stood in applause, a deafening roar, some shouting, "Karoline, she's done!" Harper, trying to maintain control, raised a hand. Miss Crockett, care to respond? Crockett's eyes showed clear shock as she tried to reply, but her voice was weakened. Miss Leavitt, Trump's policies hurt women workers. I've proposed increasing health care and education budgets while you're busy justifying trade wars and militarization. As a woman, I wish you'd understand the value of peace, not conflict. Leavitt, her gaze sharp, fired back instantly. Peace, Congresswoman? You talk peace when threats from Iran and North Korea have risen 15% over the past decade, according to the International Peace Institute. Trump keeps us safe with strength, not empty promises. As a woman, I understand the value of security. For my child, for Americans. You want to protect? Go out there and meet families living near the border, fearing smuggling and crime. Don't just sit in Congress reading speeches about justice. Crockett, her eyes betraying shock, tried to respond, but her voice trembled. Miss Leavitt, you're smart, but you don't see the harm of Trump's policies. I fight for women, the poor, and I won't stop no matter what you say. Her words lacked force, as if weighed down by Leavitt's relentless pressure. Leavitt, with a confident smile, closed the exchange. Congresswoman, if you're truly fighting, do it out there, not on X or in Congress. I stand here for millions of Americans who believe in Trump, and they're listening to me, not you. She turned to the audience, lightly raising a hand, and the room erupted in cheers. Harper, looking flustered for the first time, quickly interjected. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Leavitt, you've dominated the stage, and Miss Crockett, you're still a warrior. The audience continued clapping, but most of the applause was for Leavitt, with overwhelming cheers. Crockett, her eyes betraying vulnerability, tried to smile but was clearly overshadowed by Leavitt's sharpness. The cameras panned across Leavitt's confident, composed face and then to Crockett, resilient but unable to hide her shock. Harper raised a hand, trying to wrap up. Ladies and gentlemen, Karoline Leavitt delivered a stellar performance, and Miss Crockett showed admirable fighting spirit. Thank you both for an unforgettable debate. The atmosphere in the studio boiled like an arena, with MAGA supporters waving signs and chanting, Karoline, while progressive activists whispered, trying to process the moment they'd just witnessed. Cameras quickly captured every excited face, every phone raised to record. Leavitt sat upright, her confident gaze unwavering, looking like a gladiator who'd just won. Crockett, forcing a smile while maintaining resilience, couldn't hide her vulnerability. Her eyes briefly showed disappointment, but she still held a polite smile. Studio staff standing backstage whispered excitedly, some checking their phones. They noticed the Leavitt takes down Crockett clip already going viral on X, with thousands of shares in moments. One staffer shook their head and muttered, "This young woman just made history." Audience members began posting from "Karoline is a star" to "Crockett tried, but Leavitt was too strong." Some progressives clapped lightly for Crockett, acknowledging her fight, but the support for Leavitt clearly drowned them out. Leavitt, sensing the fervor, stood and shook Harper's hand with a confident smile. Her eyes gleamed with victory as she walked off the stage, her red high heels clicking proudly, greeted by the audience's heroic cheers. Crockett, rising slowly, shook Harper's hand, but her steps were heavier, her eyes showing defiance mixed with defeat. Harper turned back to the audience and concluded, "We'll be back soon." The cameras panned across the room, capturing the still-standing audience clapping non-stop, their cheers echoing for Leavitt. Just minutes after Karoline Leavitt's domination over Jasmine Crockett, social media exploded. MAGA supporters and progressive activists alike pulled out their phones, posting the Leavitt takes down Crockett clip on X, TikTok, and YouTube. Within 20 minutes, the Deschwars Leavitt vs. Crockett climbed to global trending, amassing over 2 million views, with most praising Leavitt's performance. Backstage, cameras caught studio staff scrolling through X, whispering, "This girl just broke the internet." On X, a MAGA account posted, "Karoline Leavitt is the queen. Congresswoman Crockett had no chance," with a clip of Leavitt's sharp national security retort. Other accounts spread memes, like one featuring Leavitt in her pastel pink blazer, with the caption, "When you're 27 but take down Congress." A TikTok video, edited with dramatic background music and cutting to Crockett's stunned silence, racked up 500,000 likes, with comments saying, "Leavitt is unstoppable." T-shirts with Leavitt's "Peace Through Strength" quote began appearing on e-commerce sites, spreading the MAGA spirit. Her X Analytics posts hit 10 million engagements in an hour, triple that of any other political event that day. Some progressives posted in defense of Crockett, highlighting her call for peace and justice. But these posts only gathered tens of thousands of views, drowned out by the Leavitt wave. One account posted, "Crockett tried, but Leavitt was too sharp," reflecting the public's lean toward Leavitt. A YouTube video analyzing Crockett's failure due to lack of preparation drew 100,000 views, while pro-Crockett posts received sparse comments. Progressive communities shared Crockett's healthcare and education speeches, but they couldn't compete with the Leavitt storm. MAGA influencers on X dubbed Leavitt Trump's new star, comparing her to veteran politicians. One viral post read, "Karoline Leavitt, 27, just schooled Congresswoman Crockett." Meanwhile, some progressive commentators admitted that while Crockett fought well, Leavitt owned the stage. A quick X poll with 50,000 participants showed that 78% thought Leavitt won, with only 15% backing Crockett, cementing Leavitt's dominance. Crockett, from backstage, posted on X, "I'll keep fighting for justice no matter who stands before me." The post got 10,000 likes but was quickly buried under hundreds of comments praising Leavitt. The social media storm wasn't just a fleeting reaction. It was proof of Leavitt's power. She didn't just shock the studio audience, she shaped the narrative on X, TikTok, and YouTube, leaving Crockett in the shadows. The storm from the Capitol clash didn't just rock social media, it spilled into mainstream media. Karoline Leavitt became the focal point after overpowering Jasmine Crockett. Hours after the show, major outlets reported the moment, turning Leavitt's stunning performance into a headline. Fox News led its evening broadcast with new MAGA, star Karoline Leavitt crushes Crockett. Commentator Sean Hannity praised Leavitt, saying, 27-year-old Karoline Leavitt just taught Congress a lesson in sharpness. A Breitbart article dubbed Karoline Leavitt as Trump's secret weapon, racking up over 1 million reads in just one day. Even CNN and MSNBC, typically reluctant to praise conservative figures, admitted Leavitt's edge. A CNN commentator remarked that while Crockett fought well, Leavitt controlled the stage. The Washington Post, with 500,000 views on its analysis, called her Washington's shockmaker, solidifying Leavitt's resounding victory. Rasmussen reports revealed a poll showing that 65% of viewers rated Leavitt the winner, compared to just 20% for Crockett. Mega forums on X overflowed with posts declaring, "Leavitt is our future," alongside images of her in the pink blazer, her eyes radiating confidence. After the debate with Crockett, Leavitt was invited to high-profile shows like Tucker Carlson Tonight and Meet the Press, boosting her public profile. Meanwhile, Crockett faced pressure from her team, with some advisors urging her to rethink her strategy to avoid another defeat. A political analysis stated, "Leavitt turned Crockett into her own shadow." Though some progressive communities respected Crockett, they couldn't escape Leavitt's influence, who had firmly defined the political narrative of the night. Leavitt's victory wasn't just a memorable TV moment. It was a turning point, thrusting her into the heart of American politics. After dominating the debate, Karoline became an icon for the new MAGA generation. Her quote, "Peace comes only from strength," spread across millions of views on X, TikTok, and YouTube, becoming more than just a sharp retort but a rallying cry. T-shirts, coffee mugs, and banners featuring her quote began appearing at MAGA events. A Gallup poll conducted shortly after the debate showed that 62% of Americans under 35 knew of Leavitt, with 45% seeing her as a young leadership role model. Articles in National Review and the Wall Street Journal labeled her a game changer, predicting she'd lead the conservative movement for the next decade. At a Florida event, President Trump publicly praised Karoline, saying, "Leavitt is the future of MAGA." Online forums like Patriots.win were flooded with posts declaring, "Leavitt crushed Crockett, now she's our star." A YouTube video analyzing Leavitt's performance garnered 2 million views, with comments like, "She didn't just win, she redefined Gen Z politics." Conservative women's groups, like Women for America First, held events inspired by Leavitt, motivating thousands of young people to get involved in politics. Her legacy wasn't merely defeating Crockett, it marked the dawn of a new era for the MAGA movement, where youth, sharpness, and confidence were celebrated. Crockett, still fighting, appeared at Dallas events to speak on justice and peace. But her once fiery eyes now carried a pensive glint, as though haunted by Leavitt's sharpness. An ex-post from Crockett, calling for increased healthcare funding, garnered 20,000 likes but was quickly drowned out by thousands of comments comparing her to Leavitt. "Crockett's good, but Leavitt's in another league." An article in The Atlantic acknowledged Crockett's spirit but concluded that she was overshadowed by Leavitt in that fateful moment. Progressive groups like Indivisible tried to revive Crockett's image by sharing clips of her calls for worker protection. But these posts only reached tens of thousands of views, unable to match the viral frenzy Leavitt had sparked. A Pew Research poll showed that only 25% of viewers recalled Crockett's arguments, while 70% remembered Leavitt's quotes. Leavitt stood before a mirror in her White House office, realizing she hadn't just won a debate, she had shaped the political future. Meanwhile, Crockett, in an emerald blazer, spoke to a crowd in Dallas about justice, but her eyes betrayed a hint of defeat, still haunted by Leavitt's sharpness. The lesson from this battle was clear. Leavitt won with preparation, composure, and connection, while Crockett, though defiant, couldn't overcome her younger opponent's strength. The moment at the Capitol clash wasn't just a victory, it was a milestone for Leavitt, cementing her as an icon for the new generation. The clash between Karoline Leavitt and Jasmine Crockett perfectly reflects the political polarization and the media's influence in today's American society, where debates have evolved into arenas for shaping public opinion. Leavitt's sharpness, thorough preparation, use of specific data, such as 90% of ISIS leaders eliminated and 20% prescription drug price cuts, and emotional connection with the audience through images of forgotten Americans dominated the conversation. Crockett, though resilient with her calls for justice and peace, faltered due to her lack of preparation against the young, savvy opponent. The viral spread of the Leavitt Avi's Crockett, hitting 2 million views across X, TikTok, and YouTube, demonstrates the immense power of social media in amplifying moments that reflect how the American public is swept up by media shocks. Leavitt's victory, bolstered by Fox News coverage and a Gallup poll showing that 62% of young people know her, underscores the importance of confidence and message delivery in modern politics. Leavitt's success teaches us that preparation and clarity of communication are key, whether you're a young political star or a seasoned politician like Crockett. In today's polarized American society, where opinions are easily divided and social media shapes perceptions, Leavitt's victory underscores the importance of preparing thoroughly, connecting emotionally, and using facts to persuade. Whether you're young like Leavitt or experienced, Like Crockett's success comes from blending data with personal storytelling. Leavitt's use of X to connect, contrasted with Crockett's emotional attacks, shows how confidence and clear communication will set you apart in today's competitive and polarized political world. Subscribe to the channel for more shocking, political moments like Karoline Leavitt's domination at the Capitol clash. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more epic verbal battles.